Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. We're happy to have you. A lot to do on this Thursday, a lot of moving parts, a lot of news to discuss. Obviously, one of the biggest things that carried us through yesterday was Bill Belichick and his ongoing flirtation with the University of North Carolina. That's since been made official since last time we met. So we will obviously talk about that. Apparently, Gentry Estes took a jackhammer to the Tennessee Titans organization this morning in the Tennessean. That'll be a subject of discussion today as well. Your phone calls are welcome. 615-737-1045. The number, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is how you can live stream the show if you are so inclined to do so. So we talked about it. We said we all would be shocked about it if it happened. And it happened. Bill Belichick is officially the North Carolina head coach. I just did the podcast with Greg Jackson. I know I haven't sent it to you yet. I will before I go to practice today.
Lies. We're calling those out now.
You're
lies.
Right.
Well, definitely a lie.
It's not a lie if I just forget. Like, is it a lie? I genuinely intend to send you the podcast in a timely fashion, and then something happens and I forget.
But will you send me the podcast in a timely fashion?
Oh, no. If I send it to you in a timely fashion, I would have sent it to you after I was done taping this morning, an hour before the show.
Lies!
Yeah, okay. That's fair. It's a white lie. It's a half-truth. I intend to. Anyway, so everybody in the NFL is shocked. Everybody in the world of college football is shocked, and we have no idea what's going to happen with all this stuff. But some additional details have come out. I'm sure that those will continue to be hyper-scrutinized, hyper-analyzed over the course of the coming days, weeks, and months. But this is Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network talking at the NFL owners' meetings, where there's also some news coming out that is completely ridiculous, but we can get to that later on. Talking on a set of the NFL Network about the idea of Bill Belichick becoming the next North Carolina head coach.
UNC is no longer just a basketball school. When Bill Belichick agrees to join North Carolina to become the Tar Heels head coach, as sources said, he has done agreeing to terms on a 3-year deal. It is all of a sudden a football school. And the fact that Bill Belichick went from on the verge, as you mentioned, of setting the NFL win record to joining a college program is stunning in so many ways. First of all, this was, to my understanding, his best opportunity to become a football coach at any level right now. It is a zag when everyone else is zigging, or whatever the term is. Plenty of coaches are going away from college football. Bill Belichick trying to exploit a market inefficiency, as he has done several times in his career, going toward it. As he told Pat McAfee a couple days ago, he will run it, Judy, like an NFL program. They're going to have a personnel department with a staff. They're going to have coaching staff. The personnel department sounds like they will do most of the recruiting. The coaches sound like they will do most of the coaching. At the head will be Bill Belichick. He has done plenty of research over the course of the last several weeks, talking to all of his friends in college football. He has been paving the way for a staff to join him. All that was needed for him to accept the job, as he did earlier today. It is crazy, but it is very real.
It is both of those things. So the staff hirings have at least started to be announced, and that Michael Lombardi, the former NFL general manager, will be his collegiate general manager. It's been a while since Lombardi's been in the NFL, but it's a kind of getting the band back together vibe that we talked about. I don't know if Josh McDaniels is going to be involved. I don't know if Matt Patricia is going to be involved. I don't know whom else he might bring out from his Patriots past.
Yeah, I'm curious about the Steve Belichick element of this, because the idea of his son being his successor is something that's been rumored as part of this package deal.
I'm glad that I had Bert last night on primetime, because we did do a lot. I mean, we just took a night off from Titan stuff. Nothing really more compelling than Bill Belichick in the NFL, so we figured we'd try it. And Bert, obviously from the state of North Carolina, from not Chapel Hill, but from the general area. Mm-hmm. So he had some unique insights on just kind of the dynamic there. And I don't think I've ever gotten him to take my side in an argument between you and I ever before last night. Because we both felt, and we talked about this, how overwhelmingly dismissive you were of the idea of Bill Belichick in college football. And we decided that it's SEC bias and that you're going to be the face of SEC pomposity. moving forward. So I'm very happy about that.
I just think a lot of things are being dismissed. First of all, like the importance of Belichick and the role he has to play in recruiting. I've heard a lot of this. Well, he just has to be the closer, right? Like, I don't know that that's the case. Deion Sanders, that is still one of the bigger knocks on Deion Sanders is his lack of commitment to recruiting, to being in living rooms. And Colorado barely has a top 40 class right now. So when we're talking about UNC wanting to be meaningfully competitive, to compete for rings, that has to be a big part of it. I am a bit skeptical about Mike Lombardi stepping into the college game, which he has not been in since the early 80s when he was the recruiting coordinator at UNLV. When it comes to relationships with high school areas and all of the things that go into talent acquisition at the college football level. So, yeah, to be fair, I am very skeptical about it. But at the same time, I love the swing from North Carolina. This has more juice for a UNC fan than any ex-up-and-coming G5 coach would give you, right? I have no idea the extent to which it's going to work, and we'll talk about his ceiling a little bit later on. The one issue I am having is this idea that it is this revolutionary thing that's not been done. And it's not been done. A coach of his pedigree in the NFL coming down to the college level. But what he talks about with Pat McAfee and building a pipeline to the NFL, essentially, NFL personnel groupings to evaluate players, talent acquisition with an NFL model, like that's happening all over the place. NFL pipelines exist. Like if you're a high school football recruit, yeah, you could go play for Bill Belichick in this prospective pipeline he's building, or you could go play for Georgia, who is just pumping players into the NFL draft every year. So I am skeptical, but I appreciate what North Carolina is doing here because this is like groomers times a million. Tennessee fans would have been so excited to get Super Bowl winning coach John Gruden, even though he had never been a college football head coach and had barely coached at the college level back in both iterations of the groomers, both 2012 and 2017. So this is that times a billion, not even a million, because obviously Belichick has so much more of a resume than John Gruden at the NFL level. So I appreciate the swing, and North Carolina fans should absolutely be excited.
I so wish it was called something else other than groomers. Like I didn't know what you were talking. It didn't register to me. I was like, what are you talking about, groomers?
You weren't around.
Unfortunate name, but very real in the hearts and minds of Tennessee fans.
It's kind of how I feel about the Predators. It's could have done better. But anyway.
Wait, what do you mean? I don't understand.
Groomers, like it doesn't. Are you just completely
Man, that is some galaxy brain stuff you're doing. I guess you just weren't around that much for groomers, so when somebody says groomers, you just have no idea what they're talking about?
Well, no, and also my timeline is filled just because we're coming off an election cycle of people debating the subject of...
What a strange connection by you.
Not even remotely. That's far more widespread use of the word than the Tennessee coaching search.
Not around here, it's not, bud. Welcome to Nashville, Tennessee.
John Gruden. He did follow me on Twitter today. Maybe we'll get him on the show.
That's a fine.
It's not a fine at all. It's a fact. Also,
that's a big fine.
No.
It's a huge fine.
You know what should be a bigger fine? Him DMing people from my Twitter account to try and do his job.
Has never happened.
Who did you DM from my Twitter account today to try and book the show?
Damian Harris, because I'm not verified. I'm not going to pay for Twitter. You are verified, so I DM Damian Harris, who does a great job, by the way, on the podcast with David Ubben and Chris Vanini on The Athletic. And I'd love to hear his perspective on this because he obviously played for Bill Belichick. And he could help us break down some CFP matchups.
So it's only a fine when it's not directly convenient for you. Because if I said that John Gruden followed me on Twitter this morning and I decided for the sake of the show, it's fine, I'll pay that fine. But he should also have to pay a fine because he's using that to get access to people that he would normally have access to.
After further review, the ruling on the field is no fine for Lucas. Buck gets a 15-yard penalty and loses a timeout.
I think that's nonsense.
And loses a timeout.
615-737-1045, the number. If you want to jump into the conversation, we'd be happy to have you. Vols, obviously, college football playoff discussion. I said yesterday that I still don't necessarily have a full level of trust in Nico Iamaleava. And we're going to talk about that and the proposition of him helping guide Tennessee through the college football playoff here in just a second. What?
And there is a little bit of news on Nashville as a host city for some college football games that will happen down the road.
I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. The Vols, their playoff hopes, fueled by an opportunity to go up to Columbus and smack Ohio State in the mouth. Now, whether they're going to be able to do it, whether they can handle that level of hostile environment. They have played in obviously hostile environments this year, but this is different. This will be Columbus, Ohio, in the cold. 100 and what is Ohio Stadium? 102, 103,000 people? Is it bigger or smaller than Neyland?
I'll look up the exact capacity. Quickly, though, we tease this. Nashville has been named the host city for the 2026 and 2027 FCS National Championship games.
Awesome.
They're going to happen at Vanderbilt, First Bank Stadium. They've been in Fresco, Texas for a long time. And Nashville becomes the 11th city to host the FCS title game since 1978. So it'll be pretty cool to see TSU get to that point and only have to go across town.
That would be really cool. Eddie George and TSU making the postseason this year. Obviously, that did not go their way in the first round, but still a huge accomplishment to try and get that program back to historically where it's been highly competitive.
Ohio Stadium and Neyland Stadium are very, very close in capacity. It's over 102K.
So, all these things we know are going to be a lot, and that's what you expect. That's what you want when you reach this kind of a situation where it's not a 14 college football playoff, but it is an expanded field. You have to win 3 games to play in the national championship if you are a first-round team the way that Tennessee is and going on the road because of circumstances that were entirely within your own control. All right. It doesn't matter how you got there as long as you get there, right? Isn't that what we feel about the Vols in the college football playoff this year? Because you could be a situation like Miami. What was Mario Cristobal hired to do?
Bring Miami back to prominence.
And he's done that. But he was also hired to compete in a 4-team college football playoff, and now he's missed the 12-team college football playoff. So there can be different levels of expectation, but this year the level of expectation, unless I'm mistaken, was for Tennessee to be a part of the 12-team college football playoff, and they have accomplished that goal. Now, how much further they can build upon that will very much dictate the level of dialogue that's around them for whenever their offseason begins heading into 2025. But for the meantime, they got a college football playoff game against Ohio State that has looked vulnerable in moments and certainly isn't unbeatable at home. Just ask Michigan, who tried to give that game away basically the entirety of the game, and Ohio State just tried to did give it away worse than did the Wolverines. The biggest sticking point for me is not the cold, it's not the environment, it's the quarterback. Nico's best performance of the year is what?
I think his best performance this year was the Kentucky game, but it doesn't really show up as much because 2 touchdown passes were dropped. That would have made that game substantially better across the stat line than it looked. He had 1 touchdown pass in that game. He should have had 3 or 4. He should have had a 300 or 400-yard game, but his receivers let him down in that game. But I think that's the best he played all season was the Kentucky game at home.
28 of 38, 292, a touchdown, a couple more that he could have had, but his receivers let him down. They beat a bad Wildcats team by 10.
Yep.
The other part of the conversation, so second best performance would be what, Vanderbilt?
Second half Alabama is his most important performance. Like if we're able to sort of zoom in like that.
Let's make it then most important performance because that's probably a better conversation than the best performance.
And the context of that game was he bounced back from a terrible first half where he's missing open receivers, where he got hurt, threw a bad interception. And then he came out after halftime, hit some big plays. Some of his most impressive throws of the season came in that game. The rollout down the right sideline to Deontay Thornton, I would argue, is his prettiest throw of the season, his most wow throw of the season, and then the game-winning touchdown to Chris Brazzell. So second half Alabama, given the circumstances and the level of competition, probably his best this year.
And he, box scores will not do that game justice, to your point about the way that the first half went. 14 of 27, 194, a touchdown and a pick. And Alabama basically holding the edge and win probability is a funny thing, right? I'm not sure how they necessarily determine it in real time. You've seen these flow charts, how one team will have the win probability the entire time, and then all of a sudden one thing will happen and it will completely send the win probability on its head or turn it on its head. But Alabama basically was going to win that game, had the highest percentage chance to win that game until like a minute 30 left in the third quarter. If you go back and look at the win probability by ESPN, and that's just one thing to judge it by until Tennessee starts to turn it on. Nico completes a pass to Dante Thornton for 55 yards. It puts them at the Alabama 3. It puts them in the driver's seat then, which Tennessee, they went back and forth for the rest of the game. It was a 24-17 win. But they went back and forth for the remainder of that third quarter into the fourth quarter, and ultimately Tennessee ended up having the edge there. So I like that barometer as the most important performance as opposed to the best performance, because those two things don't necessarily have to be the same. We understand that this will be his most important performance to date, his most important opportunity to date. How he meets that moment remains to be seen. But I'll turn it over to you two, because you're both a Tennessee alum. I don't know what the level of BVS conversation is going to be like next week, but we'll wait for next week to get there. Do you trust him outright?
I trust him if he has the support of what Tennessee's identity is on offense this year, and that's running the football.
And fair to expect that against a run defense that's not great in Columbus this year, or not just in Columbus, but Ohio State's run defense has not been its best thing this year. That's probably the biggest point of vulnerability that Tennessee should be able to pick at and find some advantages there. Fair to expect that would travel. Run game and defense typically does.
Ohio State's run defense has statistically been very, very good all season, but they were just bullied by Michigan up front in the regular season finale. So how much of that is the voodoo of the Michigan-Ohio State game? I have no idea. I mean,
and there's voodoo to some of these college football games that you just cannot quantify.
There is something there with Michigan and Ohio State. They have a Michigan problem. But the last time Ohio State, not the last time they lost to Michigan, because that was last year when Michigan went on to win the national title. But the year before that, Ohio State lost to Michigan at home. The last time they lost to Michigan at home, remember, both Ohio State and Michigan went to the college football playoff. How did Ohio State follow up that devastating loss to Michigan in the regular season finale? They had one of the best performances of the Ryan Day era that came up just short in an electric game against Georgia in the national semifinal. C.J. Stroud's best performance of his college career. They missed the kick at the end, and they lose 48-45, I think was the final. Incredible game. Marvin Harrison Jr. got knocked out of that game with the concussion. But so they followed up that embarrassing loss with one of the best performances, certainly the best losing performance of the Ryan Day era at Ohio State. So how will they follow it up this time at home against Tennessee? The pressure is heightened because now you've built up back-to-back losses against Michigan. But for Nico to come out and have a good performance, it's very clear what needs to happen. Because when you talk about his best performances of the year, there's three. Bama in the second half, the Kentucky game, and the Vanderbilt game. He was incredibly comfortable in the Vanderbilt game. He did throw a really bad interception. Apart from that, he was near perfect. In those three games, Dylan Sampson had three of his four highest rushing totals of the season. He went for 139 against Bama, 142 against Kentucky, and 178 against Vanderbilt, where he broke the single-season rushing record. That is a non-negotiable. That has to happen. Tennessee cannot have this game on Nico's shoulders with Ohio Stadium on top of him and expect to win. There's just no way around that. Brandon on the F&M Bank chat says, Nico is trending the right way, but I'm still scared of the slow starts. Ohio State's defense is too good to spot them a quarter and a lead. He's absolutely right about that. Nico has finished the season strong. The month of November, 11 touchdowns to 1 interception, 68% completion percentage, over 1,000 yards. That's in 5 games. But there have been some slow starts. And the slow start didn't matter against UTEP because you won 56-0, right? The slow start ended up not mattering against Vanderbilt. That wasn't as much Nico as it was special teams and a Dylan Sampson fumble. But it's a good point by Brandon. The slow starts are an issue. That can't happen. Tennessee has to have what they've been doing best all year. The identity of this offense is winning up front with that offensive line that was a semifinalist for the Joe Moore Award, and Dylan Sampson, the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. The burden on Nico has to be, I don't know what the word is, lessened, minimized as much as humanly possible. If that's the case, then I do trust Nico Iamaleava in those moments to step up.
That is such a back-asswards way to talk about it. the pressure on the quarterback has to be as minimal as humanly possible, and then I trust him full stop.
That's what this team is.
No, I know, but I'm asking you about him. I'm not asking you about the team. I'm asking you about your level of trust in him, and you're saying, well, it has to be as little on him as humanly, and you can be right.
Yeah, that's the path to winning. That's been the path all year for Tennessee.
I understand, but this is a conversation about the quarterback. And what you're telling me is the quarterback has to be minimized as much as humanly possible for you to have that level of trust that you just described, which to me does not indicate a high level of trust in the quarterback.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Look, he's played really well at the end of the year, but I'm with you that there is not that blanket trust that you have in him because there have been inconsistencies. There have been the slow starts. So I think that is Tennessee's best path to winning.
Yes.
I don't know about Tennessee's chances to win this game if Ohio State sells out to stop the run, though, that should open up things in the passing game. And the opportunities should be there. And Nico has been hitting on those opportunities for the most part in November. But then comes the question of playing in a hostile environment at night against a team with the talent profile, the caliber of Ohio State that can match up with you up front. And that's not something that Nico has had to do since the Georgia game, where they got off to a nice start. And then it fizzled. And Georgia, more than anything, Georgia's offense against Tennessee's defense up front bullied them the rest of the way. And Tennessee kind of found themselves playing catch-up late in that second half.
Yeah, because you bring up his statistics in the month of November. The opponents in the month of November are the 3-win Kentucky Wildcats, Mississippi State, both of those games at home. Georgia, a loss, a decisive loss, 31-17 on the road. UTEP and Vandy.
Yeah. Yeah, that matters.
It does matter.
Yeah.
I don't know what I should expect because I want to be reasonable. He's a growing, developing player. He's not going anywhere for the foreseeable future, obviously, with the way that the draft situation works, if he ends up being a draftable type of player. But in college, I just don't think in a college football playoff setting, and maybe the expectation, because Brent Doherty texted in while we were having this discussion, he said the expectation goal was playoff for sure, but they were picked to finish 7th in the SEC, which means that and preseason polls mean what they mean, but people recognize that there's an unknown factor here. The unknown is the most important position, which is Nico, even though you know a little bit about him. You've got a bowl game performance to kind of look at, and you understand that he was with Josh Heupel for a full calendar year before he became the starting quarterback. I just don't think that you can talk about them realistically as a national championship contender. You can because they're in the playoff, and they are competing. They are contending for a national championship here. But in order for me to take them as seriously as I think Vols fans expect to be taken in this game, then I have to have a greater degree of confidence in that quarterback, and I don't see that yet. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't have to happen this year, but you want it to. You want to try and manifest it into existence if you're a Tennessee fan. You don't want to have to wait for the results to bear itself out or see how much better he can be in year 2 and how much further he can get you in the college football playoff. Ohio State's at home. They should be favored. They are the better football team from my estimation. There are some places that you can nitpick there. But it's tough for me to look at this game and not say, well, Ohio State should outright win. I don't know about cover. What are they, 7.5 point favorites?
Yeah, it's over a touchdown.
And especially with it going against a defense like Tennessee's that is going to give them a game, no matter how good Ohio State is on this particular day. But against that defense specifically, all the other thing, I'm not counting Nico out. But I'm just saying I don't think that you can talk realistically about a successful path through the college football playoff if the logic is, well, as long as the quarterback is as small a part of the equation as humanly possible, then we got it in the bag.
Sure, and look, that's not the way to go about this with the conversation with Nico.
Which is fine. I'm open to that because that's the way that I'm processing this game.
That is just the identity of this football team. When they have been at their best, they have been a balanced offense with Dylan Sampson as the primary threat. Nico is one of the most high-ceiling quarterbacks in the college football playoff. How much does that show up in this college football playoff? That's the question. And it's not a crazy thing to say that setting up the quarterback for success is the quickest path to trusting the quarterback. Setting up for the quarterback for success is doing what you do best with this offense, and that's running the football.
Agreed.
With one of the best running backs in college football and one of the better offensive lines in college football. So the interesting aspect of this game is the pressure that's on Ohio State that is not on Tennessee. And there's always pressure on all of these teams in the playoff. But
it's way more house money for Tennessee.
It's so different, right? Tennessee went 10-2 and is one of 3 SEC teams in the playoff and have Nico coming back next year, the top 10 recruiting class coming in, right? Like, no matter what happens in this game, there's going to be a feeling of we're going to be running this back next year, and it still feels like an ascension, right? Ohio State is national championship or failure. That is the only thing that is going to get Ohio State fans off of Ryan Day's back, is winning a national championship. Not getting to one and losing on a last-second field goal, winning a national championship. Everything else is a failure. So how they respond to that is fascinating, because we've seen the Ohio State that almost got by Nebraska at home show up this year. We've seen the Ohio State that stepped up and just thumped an Indiana team that they are more talented than at home. And then we saw the Ohio State that turtled against Michigan at home. So I don't know which Ohio State is going to show up given the pressure that they are under. I don't know how that plays into the dynamic of this game either, but I see what you're saying, that, saying, well, if you could just minimize the quarterback, that's not to say that you are afraid if the game is in Nico's hands. It is to say that is the path that Tennessee has gone down in their best performances. That's the identity of this team. Can they win if you put the ball in Nico's hands and go win? Sure. He has the talent to do that. That's obvious. But that's not the identity of this edition of the Tennessee offense.
Which is fair. And I'm not asking them to play outside themselves. I'm just anticipating that the number one scoring defense in college football this year, which is Ohio State, allowing 10.9 points per game. Tennessee is tied for 4th with Ole Miss this year, 13.9. They've only allowed 14 touchdowns total this year, has Ohio State. I'm just assuming that defense is going to try. I don't know if they can outright stop, like completely negate Dylan Sampson and this rushing attack. I don't know that that's possible. Tennessee is a viable running threat, but that's the game plan. The game plan is to stop the run and put the ball in the redshirt freshman quarterback's hands. So I'm anticipating that will happen, or that will at least be the approach. And then the way that I'm processing it is, okay, yes, he has a high ceiling. How many times have I seen that high ceiling come through this year when the game is put in his hands? Now, they haven't had too many times, because they haven't faced the quality of defense so often that they will on this particular Saturday when they go to Columbus. I just haven't seen him do it that often yet, and I don't outright trust him in those situations yet. That's not an indictment of him. He's a young player. These things are completely natural.
Yeah.
It's like, and I know this is, an NFL and college comparison, so maybe it's not completely parallel, but it's the same way that I think of Russell Wilson, early Russell Wilson, rookie contract Russell Wilson on those Seahawks teams. Come on, Russ. It's Marshawn Lynch in the defense. That's how they got to 2 Super Bowls. That's how they won a Super Bowl. Russell Wilson was not a huge part of that equation, and that's okay. That can be successful. You have to have people in those roles, even if they're the quarterback, that understand, okay, it's not about me. And Nico does not appear to be an overwhelming, selfish is the wrong word, but a player that demands that he be in control the way that it would be understandable that some quarterbacks have that approach. He just seems to be content to go with the flow, to try and put his teammates in the best position to succeed. And there's some stuff that has to be ironed out in the meantime. Mm-hmm. It's just a tall task to ask him. He's been trying to iron it out all season long. And the best way to grow that confidence is to win the way that they did in the month of November, no matter how suspect, I think it's fair to call, their November schedule, save Georgia on the road where they lost.
Yeah.
No matter how much you might be able to nitpick the quality of opponent that they went and beat. They got the job done, save for one opportunity. Now they're being asked to do it in a much, much different situation with heightened stakes, though the entire conversation. Who has this game?
ABC. It's the prime time. It's
okay.
Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit.
Okay. So the dialogue is going to be Ryan Day.
Oh, yeah.
The primary theme.
That's the story
of the broadcast. And obviously the players don't care about the broadcast. They're not hearing the broadcast, but it just kind of sets the stage for what this is. Yeah. And that will be permeating through the entirety of those 102,000 plus people that are there, assuming that there's not some, I don't know what the level of vol contingent is going to look like. I don't know how they how they kind of.
No, they'll find. I mean,
They're going to find a way.
Tennessee fans got a hold of an Ohio State pre-sale code.
Oh, no.
And then started pillaging tickets there until it got shut down.
I
And
love you guys so much.
so
I'm terrified of you, but I love you.
There will be a contingent. Yeah, no, for sure. And they need, they don't win this game if Nico doesn't play well. That goes without saying. But how does he step up in the biggest moments? Because Dylan Sampson was good against Alabama, except for the fumble, but they needed Nico in that game, and they got him in the second half. That's the biggest moment that he has stepped up in and led this team to a win. That is basically the reason why they're in the playoff. It didn't happen as much in the Georgia game. Tennessee also couldn't stop Georgia's offense. That was a factor. But Tennessee stalled out on offense several times in that Georgia game. So can he do it under the lights in a hostile environment in a winner-go-home game? No clue. He's a redshirt freshman. He's 20 years old.
For sure.
He hasn't even had the chance to have this type of setting to play it. So we don't know.
No, it's why we're talking about these hypotheticals, because I don't know what this is going to look like for him. All I have is his sample size this year in an environment that is in environments that are not going to be anything close to what this one is, and that's how I'm processing. That's how I'm processing him right now. Tommy Angel on Facebook Live, where you can live stream the show. You can call in. We'll get to your comments or your calls here in just a second. Tommy said, I've listened all this year to this station stating how bad the Big Ten is. This should be a boat race, right? I don't know. Who said the Big Ten is bad?
I mean, certainly you get past, that's how we talked about it all year. The top of the Big Ten, the Oregon-Ohio State crop, has been better this year than the top of the SEC. Are those teams better than the top of the SEC? That's what the playoff's for.
Right.
But there is no question that the top of the Big Ten has just mauled the rest of the 75% of the Big Ten, whereas the SEC, that's not been the case.
The rest of the Big Ten, right? This is now the top of the Big Ten. So you'd be a fool to look at the top of the Big Ten and say that's not the equivalent of a quality SEC team. Coming up next, we'll take your phone calls on the playoff, how you're feeling about Nico right now heading to Columbus, even though we have about a week and change until we see how this thing plays out. Also, we might touch on bad vibes across the NFL. There's a lot of teams that are down tremendous. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in, you can do so. We have been talking about the college football playoff this morning. Talked about Nico specifically. How much you trust him. Basically, what's your level of confidence in the redshirt freshman quarterback is heading to Columbus in a big spot a week from this coming Saturday. Should be a fun game. It should be tight, right? Like, I would expect Tennessee to, at minimum, cover. I don't know that I would have the confidence to bet a money line if I was betting this game, but I would definitely feel confident in Tennessee plus 7.5 because they haven't had an outright nuclear moment other than the start of the Vandy game looked like it could tailspin on you very, very quickly, given what the stakes already were heading into that Vanderbilt game, what that conversation was like. By the way, congratulations to Clark Lee.
Oh, yeah.
SEC Coach of the Year. Huge accomplishment, what they were able to get done this year. I know it petered out a little bit after the Alabama game, but still, hopefully that's something that they can continue to build upon, and that 7 wins and 6 wins can be an expectation as opposed to an anomaly, a shooting star on West End. So congratulations to Clark Lee, his staff, and that entire program. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, well deserved. Well deserved.
615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in. Peyton is up next.
Hey, Buck, how are you guys?
Good.
Good. So, just talking about the Tennessee and Ohio State game, it's crazy how much a loss can really change the narrative of how people talk about a football team. That loss to Michigan was absolutely horrible, right? But I think people tend to forget exactly how good Ohio State is because of that loss. I think Oregon is probably the best team in the country, not just because of their record, but their offense and their defense kind of play really complementary of each other. And Ohio State did go to Autzen, I think, in early September, maybe early October. And they lost by a point. And they should have outright won that game if they didn't miss a field goal. And Will Howard shouldn't have even had the opportunity to have that boneheaded play at the end of the game where he should have slid. So, point being, I just think it's crazy how a loss kind of changed the narrative. And I'll hang up and listen. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for the call, Peyton. You and your turn signal. We appreciate it.
Wonder where he's going.
I don't know.
Good job using a turn signal.
Yes, it should be commended. And also, I hope you're wearing your seatbelt out there.
He's right.
He is right. Now, it's not just a loss, though. It's the team it's the biggest game of the year for them that's not a national championship game. It's the most vulnerable your rival has ever been after they've had a string of successes against you. It's not just any loss. It's not like if Ohio State would have lost to Indiana, would it have been, I'm sure Ohio State fans would have been pissed and there would have been some level of dialogue because Indiana never beats Ohio State. That's just not something that's ever feasible, even when they have a 10-win season, the way that they did here. But that Michigan loss dictates a lot more of a narrative. It carries a greater deal of weight.
No, of course it does. Yeah.
Than should any other loss. So the way that he kind of characterized it, it was just like, a loss can change the narrative. No. This loss changes the narrative, and I think rightfully so.
For the fan base, definitely. Like, Ohio State's fan base seems to be kind of melting down right now. And honestly, I don't know anybody up there. I don't know anybody that covers the team. I'd love to hear kind of what the vibe is now. Are they sort of turning to the playoff and rearing up to go on a run? I don't know. But let's say the fan base is completely melting down and they're just throwing their hands up and they're saying, we're going to lose to Tennessee, fire Ryan Day, and it's all negative vibes. That doesn't mean that's what's happening in that building. Like I said, last time Ohio State lost to Michigan at home, they came out with an incredible performance that would have beaten anybody in the country other than Georgia on that day. And who knows what would have happened in that game if Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't get knocked out after a big hit and suffering a concussion. If Tennessee plays that version of Ohio State, that's going to be tough to get out of the shoe with a win. So I'm not going to just dismiss and say that players are walking into the facility with their heads down this week. Like, Ryan Day is a good football coach. I know Ohio State fans are mad at him right now. I think he's going to have them ready to play in this game.
Oh, no. I can only run it through my prism, but I'm covering a 3-win football team this year. And very rarely do you, I mean, post-game losses, like post-game after losses, the immediate aftermath, obviously the vibes are terrible. But that doesn't mean that, like, Wednesday's the first day of practice last week. They're eliminated from playoff contention. It's not like everybody's dead and mopey and miserable in there. No, it's another work week. They go about it. They're trying to beat the Bengals on Sunday. That's just how football players and coaches have to process these things. I know it's a cliche to just say, well, turn the page, or the most important play is the next play, or whatever the case may be, but this is literally how these people operate. Speaking of vibes, good or bad, the NFL have-nots have never, at least in the last decade of football, they've never felt further away from the rest of the pack than they do this year. Where we're talking about the Raiders, the Giants, the Patriots, the Titans, the Jets obviously have tremendous, it's just New York. I know we didn't play that audio that I had Jackson spend 20 minutes bleeping yesterday. I might still today. It's pretty funny. It may still be my Friday fire later in the week. But vibes around the NFL. I was talking to a friend of mine who works for a national network, and they had done a variety of different games this year, and we were having a conversation yesterday about, man, just the vibes around the bad teams this year, or the teams that are like clearly down this year. It's never really felt collectively worse across the league than it has for some reason this year. Now, I can't speak to New York or Jacksonville or any of these other places. I can just run it through what I've been seeing here. And yeah, the vibes have been bad here. There's an open letter to ownership on the front page of the newspaper today. I guess the homepage of the newspaper. Are people still front paging newspapers? Are there still physical newspapers rattling around out there, rustling around out there? Anyway, there's an open letter to ownership today from Gentry Estes of the Tennessean, which we will talk about later on in the show, excoriating her handling of this entire situation to kind of summarize just how bad she has let the vibes get based on the way that Gentry Estes approached this. Where are the vibes worst? Because I would just say the state of New York.
Yeah, state
outside of Buffalo, like Buffalo's like 3 hours away from Manhattan or Florham Park or
Giants Jets. That's the answer.
It's the Jets. I think it's the Jets.
And Giants fans are the ones hiring a plane to go over the stadium, saying fix this mess. John Mara.
Yeah.
I mean, the Raiders haven't won in months. They currently have the number one pick. They've lost, I think, 9 in a row. Seat seems to be getting hot on Gerard Mayo up in New England. Panthers are feisty, so they're not. I think they're actually kind
Panthers vibes, best vibes out of any of these terrible teams.
As good as it can be at 3-10, Carolina.
But that's the point. It can be better at 3-10. Like there can be things all of these teams are capable of. One would think of finding some level of positivity to build upon, and that's been Brian Callahan's message. It was his message yesterday.
And it's wild to go naming that many teams without even getting to the Browns. And the Jags. Like, that's the state. I mean, it is insane.
There are so many terrible teams in the NFL this year. So many. But yeah, it's the Jets. The Jets are the worst because Aaron Rodgers, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers can't be a pleasant person to deal with on a normal basis anyway, much less when they're this kind of wretched. He's never had a season like this ever, has he?
Rodgers, surely not. Not this bad.
No. Coming up next, how badly do Titans fans want to hear from Amy Adams Strunk? Like I said, there's a column in the newspaper today basically ripping the entire organization for her handling of these things. But my question is, do fans actually care to hear from the owner, or is that just a media position? I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. Titans were on the practice field Wednesday, getting ready to host the Bengals at Nissan Stadium. Will Levis, a full participant in practice, he met with the media and was asked if the shoulder injury is something that he expects to linger the rest of the season.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, something that I'm using every day, obviously, so it's hard to give it proper rest, and I was able to give it that rest when I had the few weeks off, which was nice. But it's definitely a different scenario now, and we're just going to take it day by day, see how it feels.
Tyler Boyd, Nick Folk, Tavondre Sweat, and Tony Pollard were among the players that did not practice yesterday. It is official. Bill Belichick will be the next head coach at North Carolina. His introductory press conference coming up this afternoon. Former NFL GM and Patriots assistant Mike Lombardi will reportedly join the six-time Super Bowl champ in a general manager role. Elsewhere in the college football coaching carousel, UNLV reportedly hiring former Florida coach Dan Mullen to replace Barry Odom, who took the head job at Purdue, and West Virginia brings back Rich Rodriguez to be the head coach of the Mountaineers. In Nashville news, Music City has been named the host of the 2026 and 2027 FCS championship games to be played at First Bank Stadium on the campus of Vanderbilt. Also, Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee named the SEC Coach of the Year for 2024. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour underway. Thanks for jumping in. Happy to have you, Jackson, Lucas, and me until 1 o'clock. Titans back on the practice field later, though that is not terribly relevant given that they're eliminated from postseason contention with 4 weeks left to go, a whole month left in the regular season. And the Titans answering questions yesterday at practice about what's there left to play for. And they gave a variety of different answers about building for 2025 and still, needing to put good tape out there this year and all the things that you say. And they're right. That's absolutely the correct approach in a situation like theirs. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. There will be time to discuss this Bengals game, and we'll probably spend the bulk of tomorrow doing that. But I want to talk about this column from Gentry Estes of the Tennessean, and I know the morning show spent a good bit of time doing it as well. This is an open letter to Tennessee Titans owner Amy Adams Strunk that Gentry penned. Now, we're going to get into the substance of the article itself more at 12:20 today. But to summarize, Gentry is demanding more transparency, and he's doing it on behalf of fans, even though he's a media member. He's demanding more transparency from an owner who is not visible in a public leadership setting hardly at all, who doesn't take public questions in press conferences, who gives press conferences but speaks, has prepared written remarks that she reads directly from, and whose largest level of media exposure last year, as Gentry points out, was on the Official Titans podcast with Mike Keith, where a team employee is the person asking her questions, and where Rand Carthon is the person who's sent out there to answer questions about the firing of Mike Vrabel, when basically he said in that press conference that he wasn't necessarily empowered to speak on behalf of ownership. Then why the hell are you out there answering questions? It's not a Rand thing. It's an Amy thing. Why? Why are you doing this to this person? Now, the answer can simply be, well, she doesn't have to. What does she benefit? What does she benefit from getting out in front of people? What does she benefit from being in a press conference setting with us, where it's Terry McCormick shouting over somebody to try and get his question heard, where it's PK just throwing spears at whomever's up there at the press conference? It's us elbowing each other out of the way, trying to get press conference questions asked, and she's having to field through them, which is not a sanitized setting, which is not prepared remarks. In fact, it's the potential for her to get flustered and probably disclose too much is entirely more. So to say that it benefits her at all, I would say no. But should she do it anyway, is the question. Do fans want her to?
How much do fans legitimately, how much are fans pining to hear from her?
I couldn't possibly tell you. I can't answer that question. That's a question that only the people within the sound of our voices can answer. I cannot speak on behalf of Titans fans.
I don't know what equity she could, because there are fans that are upset, right? They're 3-10, and they're being asked for a lot of money for the upcoming stadium. What could Amy Adams Strunk say at a podium to make that fan feel better?
Nothing.
Like what difference could that really make? Is my for the fan? I understand why every media member on behalf of fans demand that she do it, but I just wonder. That's why we put it to a poll. As Titans fans, how important is it for you to hear Amy Adams Strunk speak? Right now, the options were very important, not that important, and makes no difference. 40%, so there are more votes than any on makes no difference. 40%.
Because it doesn't change the quality of the product. The quality of the product is 3-10. Like, that's what it is. Amy Adams Strunk has no power. I mean, she does have power to directly impact things because she could fire people. I mean, she could do that, I guess. Would that directly impact the product on the field? Yes, it would. Would it be better? I don't know. I have no idea. It doesn't change what happened this year, which is she made changes, and the changes blew up in their face, and she tried to be like the Lions because she's friends with the Lions owner. And the answer to the Lions' success is what? It's they drafted better. That's the summary of Gentry's article. It's you tried to model this thing off of all the different buzzwords that were used this offseason, the C word being the biggest among them, collaboration, when in reality, like football teams don't have to be, football teams, players and coaches have to collaborate. The rest of it doesn't have to be all that terribly collaborative for it to be successful. Players and coaches have to be on the same page, but the business office, they can, kick rocks as far as the football is concerned. And that's the way that a lot of NFL teams operate. Or at least that's the way that a lot of NFL teams exist. Whether it's intentional or not, it depends on who you're talking about and how much access you get and how much you get to see that inner office dynamic between a head coach and a team president, for example, or an owner and the assistant general manager, like all these different dynamics that are being scrutinized, but you don't actually get to see.
I'd like to hear from her.
Okay, why? Let's differentiate.
Because I do believe that generally there should be more accountability when it comes to owners in the NFL, the most key decision makers in any organization, apart from the Green Bay Packers with their situation. So that's just a general thing. I would like to hear more from owners in general, especially owners in charge of a situation that's not good. But at the same time, I don't think I would walk away from an Amy Adams Strunk press conference saying, I feel better now. Right? Like, okay, I'm good now. I'm glad that we heard that. I feel good about where things are now. That's where and that's why I want to know from the regular Titans fan, because I think people are split on it. Like most people in the F&M Bank chat have said there's nothing she could say at 3-10. OG says, I'm more concerned about what Amy does versus what she says. I don't care about lip service. But the Tape Farm says accountability. Screw equity, transparency. We deserve accountability. It's so odd that the radio station gets behind the owner. James says, I would only want her to come out and say, I made a mistake on my firing of Mike Vrabel. That's not going to happen.
Never would happen. Now, to the point of it's so odd that the radio station gets behind the owner, state-run media is how he finished that comment off, which you did not read. Listen, there's nothing that I'm going to, if you think that my commentary would be approved by the organization throughout the course of this season, I think you are sorely, sorely mistaken. Now, if you feel that way, there's nothing I can do to convince you otherwise other than just listen to the radio show and you would understand that this is not state-run media. I would welcome the opportunity. Like somebody sent a comment a couple of weeks ago. Have Amy on the show. Okay. Sure. I can ask. That'd be great. 0% chance that ever happens. And that's outside of my control. I'll tell you why I don't think it's ever going to happen. Like what we're talking about, a press conference setting where she answers questions from the vultures. Because I think the percentage chance that Titans fans come away from that feeling worse is so much greater than that Titans fans feel better about the person at the head of their organization. And I'm not saying that's necessarily an indictment on her, but think about Jerry. Do Cowboys fans feel better when Jerry Jones talks? And Jerry holds a weekly press conference. I mean, it's more than weekly media appearances.
That is a weekly radio show.
I think he's on the radio twice a week in Dallas. Plus the post-game press conference. And I don't know who goes first in that situation. If McCarthy speaks first and then they shuffle out in the hallway and Jerry talks to him, or if Jerry goes first and then they go speak to McCarthy. But there is so much greater opportunity for her to come away from that with egg on her face than there is that she comes out as this shining light of NFL ownership that Titans fans feel 100% better about because she's in charge of the team. Now, there are reasons to feel better about Amy Adams Strunk because she's in charge of the team. The last, I don't know, what has it been, 8 years? 15 was the first year that she was the controlling owner, like in name, the controlling owner. And it is an appreciably better franchise in that time than it was before she took over. That's fallen off. You can't grift on, well, I'm doing it better than Tommy Smith at the time, because, yeah, you did, and now it's regressed to the mean, we'll say. And it's gone further than that this year, where they made all these changes, said the things that you say at every other press conference when you make changes. Fans deserve better. Lombardi Trophy aspirations. We want to bring a championship to the city of Nashville. Those are all the correct things to say. And then when it goes nuclear, fans are looking around and it's a really easy thing to pile back on the same way that we've done it. Because your words matter. I have no idea what she would be like in a press conference setting. I've never seen it. It's never happened that way, where she's fielded questions from us. She only has to do it if fans want her to do it. I mean, she only has to do it if fans let their displeasure be known monetarily. That's the only way that somebody in that position would be forced into a press conference setting where he or she is forced to field questions at that rate, where the consumer, the constituency, is letting their displeasure be known, not just by the optics of an empty stadium, but by straight up stop paying for tickets, stop renewing season tickets or PSLs or ignoring the merch store or any other way that these things make money. The only place to impact change is financially. It's not media op-eds. And I agree with what Gentry is saying. I think she should, but I completely understand why she would not in any circumstance want that to happen, be interested in that happening, nor is anything right now compelling that to happen. Because for as many people are saying, well, I won't pay for season tickets in the new stadium, there's a bunch of people who already have. Like they're already making money hand over fist on this thing. I don't know that there's any way to enact change in this specific time, nor would it change anything. She's still the owner. Like, just because she gets up there and fields questions, for those of you who are dissatisfied with her ownership, like she doesn't turn the team over at the end of the press conference and be like, all right, we'll give it to somebody who might do this thing better. No, of course not.
James says, I think if she came out and stated she made a mistake, fans would accept that and be happy with it. Showing some humility goes a long way. Made a mistake in what? Like,
if she has to think she made a mistake.
Yes, and then that would mean letting somebody go. Like for Amy coming up and acknowledging a mistake. If she gets to the podium
and says, I made a mistake, then the mistake is getting fired.
Right.
Like
what mistake are you wanting her? What's the mistake here?
Well, I think a lot of people would say that the mistake is some combination of whether it's Callahan or Carthon or just the whole thing. Like that they tried to make changes, that the changes didn't work, and they haven't worked. The changes definitively have not worked. The product is worse. It's appreciably worse in a lot of different metrics that you would look at. Not just on the field, but off.
So if you want her to come up to a podium and said, I made a mistake in handling this whole situation and the timing of firing John Robinson and keeping Vrabel and hiring Rand and then firing Vrabel and keeping Rand and then hiring Callahan. Okay, so you're saying you want her to come up and clean house and say, I messed up. I made a mistake. So you want them to clean house. That's what you want.
That's what you want.
If you want Amy Adams Strunk to come up and say, I made a mistake with this whole thing, then you are asking her to come up and say, and to clean house with the entire leadership of the Titans. And I don't know how close we are to that. I would say not very close.
And also, that just puts the spotlight on her even more, because if she cleans house again and it doesn't work again, then she looks like incompetent ownership. I'm not saying that she shouldn't do it. I'm just giving all the reasons. I'm just giving you all the reasons why it would not benefit her a single solitary thing to get up in front of media and take questions that way. But I'm down if you are. 615-737-1037. 1045 is the number if you want to get involved there. Coming up next, we will pivot back to some college football playoff discussion. No doubters, contenders, and pretenders in this 12-team field. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. College football playoff no-doubters, contenders, pretenders is what we are going to get to here in just a second out of the 12-team field. But your phone calls are welcome. We were discussing Gentry Estes' open letter in the Tennessean today to Titans controlling owner Amy Adams Strunk, basically being like, your product sucks, get out and say something about it. And whether or not that would matter to Titans fans. I'm a media person. I don't get to answer on behalf of you. So I'm going to turn it over to you. 615-737-1045. What do you want out of this kind of situation? Because I don't think it happens, well, regardless of what you want or not. I'll tell you that right now. I don't think that she would do it. She doesn't have to. There's no reason for her to. Other than, it would satisfy some level of bloodlust that you guys seem to have. But beyond that, there's no logical reason in my head from her perspective that it would make sense. 615-737-1045. The number, let's go to Gary first.
Hey, gentlemen. Just wanted to make a long statement here, just if I can. I'm 70 years old, a little bit older, born and raised in Nashville, been around here my entire life, all my family. Anyway, I don't think Amy Adams Strunk could care less. She's got her new stadium coming in. She'll get her a Super Bowl in it. The family that owned the Baltimore Orioles for years and years till they finally sold it. They got Camden Yards built. They got all the big things played in their venue. We'll probably will down here. We gave our tickets up a few years ago. They could care less. We didn't go in there yip-yap. We just said we just don't see the product. And it just didn't see it coming. And as I said, I just figured if I want to see a good dollar spent, go over and see the Predators play, win, lose, or draw. That's just that's the way I spend my money now. The Titans, I think we just got shammed on that new stadium, and she's the one that's going to come out smelling like a rose. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks for the call, Gary. Well, in any other year, you're right about the Preds. Obviously.
No, that experience is arguably worse this year.
I had a bunch of friends that went to that game on what was that, Tuesday night? That they were in Calgary, and then Roman Josi got hurt, and then they lost 4-3.
They're in Dallas tonight, trying to end an 8-game losing streak.
God Almighty! But yeah, I mean, in most years, you would be right. They had 6 winning seasons with Tennessee, but I understand your point. It doesn't impact. She got the thing. She got the thing that's a crown jewel for any NFL ownership group. Getting a stadium built and having public money involved. No, it's not quite. I don't think it's quite the scale of public money that Buffalo has, for example. But still, that matters so much more. That ups the valuation. You know how much the Titans are valued at now, according to Forbes? It's ballpark $4 billion. That's crazy to me that one of the NFL organizations, I mean, I know they have the Houston Oilers history and stuff like that, but how much more that valuation is going to go up when they actually open this thing from a financial standpoint, because they have that ownership stake in the new stadium along with public money. Man, the cost of doing business for these NFL owners, that is the ultimate goal. I would argue it's more financially viable than winning a Super Bowl. Now, winning a Super Bowl would probably help you get a stadium built, but there's so much more long-term money in getting a stadium built, and she's done that. So I agree with the caller. It's just one of those things where there's no way to get people. The only way to get an NFL owner to sell is what happened to Dan Snyder, really. Or like, what was the Clippers owner? Donald Sterling.
Right. And those are extreme.
Very
extreme situations.
And you know what? The owners were not of consensus in the NBA or the NFL to vote those people out because they didn't want the skeletons in their closets.
Oh, they had dirt on all those guys.
That's what I'm saying. Those people don't want that kind of stuff to happen to other NFL owners because it could then happen to them.
Brandon on the F&M Bank chat says, I would like to know what she thinks the progress and vision is for the team, knowing that things did not jump off like everyone thought it would. If it is a slow burn, then give confidence for the future.
Yeah, but what if it doesn't happen? Like, if it doesn't happen in the future, then you're just going to drag her for those comments that she made. Go to Rob next.
Hey, guys. I'm same here, Hendersonville guy. Been watching the team my whole life. my thing is, it's been 11 months, since the Grable firing, and I agree with you. There is a severe split in the fan base right now. And really, we're sitting here at the same point, and we don't even know what he said, and we want some accountability. Like, I'm just saying that the only thing that we were told is how much better the offense was going to be and how good we were going to be. And, you get 2 weeks in a row, 2 punt blocks in a row. That's coaching to me, I feel like. The offense is terrible. For you to say we're the second worst team in the NFL right now, we only have 2 wins against the starting quarterback this year. That's terrible. She needs to get up there and talk about what is going on and what her vision is, because it's ridiculous. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the call, Rob. Again, I appreciate that perspective, but you said she has to. She doesn't have to. And that's the whole reason my position is that she won't, because there is nothing that actually will force her hand here, which probably frustrates a good contingent of the fan base. And you're right to be frustrated by that. Like, I totally get it. Most CEOs of companies, right? They give, I don't know if they give quarterly statements or annual statements or some kind of regular address to the company. And those things may be delivered virtually and without, they're not fielding questions. That's what this is. Vincent is next. Vincent. All right, excellent work by you. Darrington.
My brother, you know I'm going to be here. You ain't got to worry about no background. You dig what I'm shoveling? Hey, listen, Amy might got a little bit too much dip on the tip. So you talking about she won't, she can't? I'll tell you how she will. Y'all stop spending y'all money down there. Money talk, BS walk. Quit spending money. You start adding some of these big outlets like ESPN, NFL Network, with the 1,000 loads of Amy Adams Strunk and the dissatisfaction that you have. Brown paper bagging it on TV. When they come down here and it's on TV and you're showing your dismay that you will not support what she is doing without her commenting, I guarantee she'll come out there and say something then. First it'll be a publicist, and then when that doesn't work, then she won't have no. Sometimes you just got to force somebody's hand. I'm just saying. Hey, I go back to the shadows. I keep listening. Y'all have a good one. You dig?
What, you get a catchphrase now, Darrington? You dig?
You dig. That's a sign-off.
Okay. Let's talk about some more fun stuff. Because we'll circle back around to this. I messaged Gentry this morning. I said, I'm tempted to read your whole column on the air, but I don't want to undermine your paywall thoughts. And he said, yeah, go for it. So that's what we're going to do. Reading is a segment that's coming your way at 12:20. And I promise you, you're going to want to hear it. Because it's point for point, very well made. And I don't just say that because I like Gentry and I think he's a good writer and he's a buddy of mine. You're going to want to hear this if you're a Titans fan. So, college football playoff, no doubters, contenders, and pretenders. Should we work our way up from the last seed to the first seed?
Sure. We did this exercise earlier in the year where we split it up into, like you said, no doubters, contenders, or pretenders. Now we have a field to do it with. So, yeah, we can work our way up.
Well, we did it with NFL teams, right?
No, we did it with the college football playoff rankings.
It's been a while since we've done it then. So let's start with the 12 seed. Let's start with Clemson. Is Clemson in the category of no doubter, contender, pretender? My position is Dabo did exactly what he said he was going to do in the ACC championship. Now, SMU gave him a game, right? SMU made it interesting, which is something that we didn't know necessarily what to expect from SMU in that conference championship game. But Dabo gets the conference championship, and he usually wins. I think he's undefeated in the ACC championship game every time he's made an appearance to date. Texas is the opponent, and you have to take that into consideration. But I think I'm comfortable calling them a contender, even though they're an 11-point favorite in this first round. Or, an 11-point underdog in this first round.
I'm going pretender with Clemson. They did win the ACC championship, and that's a credit to them. And I picked them to win it because I figured they were the more talented team, and Dabo, for all of his faults, is still a good football coach when it comes to X's and O's. And that's a game that they are used to playing in and winning. But with all that said, SMU clearly had some issues early on. I don't know if it was nerves or what, but they had drop passes, early turnovers, very uncharacteristic things that they had not been doing all season, and still found a way to come back, tie it late, and if not for a big kick return and a 56-yard field goal, that game's going to overtime despite all the SMU mistakes. Too often in big moments, Clemson this year has come up short. Got dusted by Georgia, embarrassed at home against Louisville, losing late at home against South Carolina, and escaping the ACC championship against SMU. I'm going pretender with Clemson. And that doesn't mean that they can't find a way to beat Texas, but we're talking about the ability for them to go all the way to win a national title.
Yep.
I don't know. I struggle with that. Even if the path to a semifinal is very much there, if they were to upset Texas, they do have to go to Austin to do it. So I've got to put Clemson under the pretender category.
So then to the 11 seed, their ACC competition in the championship game, SMU. I'm going to go pretender for exactly the reasons that you just laid out. They look shook. They're new here, right? They're just getting their bearings. I don't think there's anything wrong with looking a little rattled, and it still be an accomplishment for them to have made the 12-team field. But SMU, to me, is less than Clemson. Clemson, I feel like, is more contender than pretender. So, I don't know if I'm doing a 60-40 split on Clemson or whatnot, but I think that pretender is more, and I would honestly do the same for Indiana. I would say that both of those are closer to pretenders to me than contenders.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think Indiana's better than SMU. Like, I think Indiana would be favored against SMU.
I think so, too.
But I think 11 and 10 seeds, probably pretenders. Then, to number 9, Tennessee. You want to go first?
They're certainly not no-doubters.
No.
But I don't think that they are pretenders. So I'm putting Tennessee in the contender category as a team that, if they were to put it all together, has the ability with the defense and explosive passing game and run game, if it is all put together, to go on a run and win this thing. I don't think it's likely with the path that's in front of Tennessee right now, but I do not believe the Vols are just a fraudulent team in this playoff. I'm putting them in the contender category.
I can't think that Clemson is a contender and Tennessee is not, would be my logic, would be the most sound logic that I could have to put Tennessee in the contender category. And so I will, but I will tell you that I am very, very tempted to make them a pretender because of the quarterback situation, just for all the reasons that we talked about in the first hour. That the best plan for success for Tennessee is minimizing the most important position out on the field. And that, to me, does not indicate a level of outright contender status. Now, is Cade Klubnik getting kind of perfect quarterback or super trustworthy player at this point? No, I wouldn't make that argument either, which is why I would put Tennessee in the same category as Clemson. But the quarterback situation makes me want to ding them a little bit, even if I think the rest of the roster is more than enough to make up for it. Maybe not. I mean, they still might get bounced first round, and they still be contenders.
It's fair to have questions about which Nico is going to show up early in this game, under the lights, against that defense. It is very fair to have those questions because it has been on and off. When it's been on, it has been on, and you can see the talent. But when it's been off, Tennessee's gotten off to some really poor starts and have sputtered in moments. So that's fair. But, yeah, I think you put them in the contender category because when it's on, they can beat anybody that they play. And if you can beat anybody that they play at your best, then you are a contender.
Yeah, we just haven't seen that. Like we haven't seen them be on and beat anybody that they can play because the teams that they've been playing are UTEP and Vandy, and then they didn't have it against Georgia, and then they didn't do it.
Oh, you saw it against Alabama.
For a half. And it's the half that matters. Yeah, they won.
You won the game. Yeah, despite as bad as things were in the first. That's the thing. As bad as Nico was in the first half.
Yeah, but Alabama is suspect.
You still won the game. Why? Because of your defense.
Okay. Now, listen, I understand that beating Alabama carries greater weight for Tennessee fans. I completely understand that. But Alabama this year is not the Alabama that we're accustomed to.
No, it's not. But it was a team the first team out of the playoff picture. Like, that's a better win than some of the no-doubters that we're going to bring up here.
I get it. But I'm just saying, you can pick at them if you wanted to. So from the 9 seed to their opponent, the 8 seed, Ohio State, no doubt. Michigan's not in the field. I have no doubts about Ohio State.
They are no doubt a contender. Yeah.
No doubter.
Yes, they are a no-doubter that they can contend for a national.
No doubt a contender.
Yes, no, fair enough. That is confused. Will Bowling's in the F&M Bank chat. He said, Nico has not been an issue since the first half against Alabama.
Yeah, because you haven't played anybody.
He played Georgia, and he was not the problem. He was far from the problem.
No, he wasn't a problem against Georgia, but he wasn't good enough to beat Georgia. And he had, a fairly competent version of his game, and it was not enough to really sniff Georgia there.
Tennessee couldn't beat Georgia because they couldn't stop anything. Receivers were letting them down. And Georgia just beat Tennessee up front. Nico was very far down the list. So Will is right that he has not been an issue since the first half of the Alabama game. A little blip early on against UTEP, but that ended up not mattering. But I agree, I understand why there's not this blind trust in he's going to carry you under the lights at Ohio Stadium. Yeah,
not based on you can cite their schedule and that's fine.
Now, he's 20 years old. There's a lot of variance there. He's a redshirt freshman.
There's plenty of people in the field that could say the exact same thing. I'm just saying that Tennessee is not as far away from that as some people in the fan base might think they are, and that's fine. You're entitled to have belief in your quarterback and your program, whatever. But I'm just, as an objective neutral party here, I don't.
Sure. But like you talk about the Alabama win, again, that win is a better win than a couple of the no-doubters / contenders that we're talking about.
Oh, sure. No, it's better than Ohio State's best win, without question.
Ohio State's best win is Penn State. That could be debatable. Certainly better than Texas's best win. Better than Notre Dame's best win.
Yeah.
So,
Notre Dame contender for me.
Yeah.
I would say Penn State contender.
Because of how they played.
The Big Ten championship game.
If they play like that in the Big Ten championship game, they can beat anybody.
And then, obviously, you get into the top 4 seeds. Texas.
They are a no-doubter for me, but I do have questions about them.
Oh, wait. Then you can't. What?
I have questions about all these teams.
You said no, they're a no-doubter, but I have questions.
I have questions about Ohio State. I have questions about Oregon. I have questions about Georgia. Right. I have questions about Texas.
Yes, I get that.
Is Ohio State
the sentence, Lucas? They are a no-doubter that I have questions about. Doesn't compute.
That's fair. Is Ohio State a no-doubter to you? No-doubter that they are a contender to win the Natty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have questions about Ohio State?
Ish.
Yeah, you do. Georgia.
Not as many as I have about Texas.
Sure.
So that puts them in a different category to me than Texas.
Texas has lost to one team all year, and I know they haven't beaten. Their best win is Texas A&M.
Okay, but it's the most important position that I have the biggest questions about. It's my same. It's a different version of the same argument for Tennessee.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. Texas is just too talented to me. They're too talented to not be a no-doubter.
Didn't matter against Georgia. And then the top 4 seeds, obviously, Arizona State, pretender.
Yeah, and a hat tip to them. They're fun. They're feisty.
Boise State, it's not just Genty. The entire team is not just Genty. That's garnered the most headlines.
Yeah, they're not good enough to win a national championship.
Right.
Yeah.
So the top 2 seeds were in agreement.
Yeah.
Well, Georgia. I don't know that their quarterback's going to be available for any of this.
Yeah, but they're not a team built around their quarterback.
I think that is evidence of.
Yeah.
So contender for Georgia.
Yeah.
And then obviously no doubt for Oregon. I only have 2 no doubts.
Oregon and Ohio State?
Mm-hmm.
I think Georgia and Texas could very well meet in the national championship game. You have to consider the path here, too. I mean, Georgia is going to play the winner of Indiana Notre Dame, and then could potentially play Penn State or SMU or Boise.
I know
to
you
me
can't
makes
do
them
it.
a no-doubter.
I know you can't do it in a neutral environment the way that this exercise kind of requires you to. You do have to consider their path to the national championship.
It absolutely matters. Georgia has a clear path to the national championship. If they play their game, they will beat everyone in their path.
Oh, they'll never see the Hoosiers coming, baby.
Believe me, I would love that.
Even if I'd rather see Notre Dame win. All right, coming up. The Vols 2025 schedule is out, and it's interesting. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. So, you've got Tennessee football's 2025 schedule complete. It is out. You've got the full list of opponents and dates available. There's a variety of different games. Tennessee will host Georgia in its 2025 SEC opener, which is obviously a little different.
I love the setup. A variety of different games. Yep, it's a schedule. Georgia in week 3, which is weird.
It's weird.
September, just the flipping of Georgia and Florida, which is what basically has happened here. Georgia, the SEC opener. Florida, the penultimate game of the regular season on November 22nd, is going to be odd. It is going to be odd.
So, I mean, are those the highlights? Because the opponents are the SEC opponents of note. Obviously, Georgia at home, you're at Alabama, at Kentucky, home for Oklahoma, at Florida, home Vandy right now. There's also a road date at Mississippi State if you're interested. But beyond like the weirdness of the schedule, like you said, Florida on November 22nd, Georgia on September the 13th, and obviously the Alabama date gets priority there. Oklahoma, are they going to play Oklahoma every year? They wouldn't play Oklahoma every year.
There is no clear-cut future in SEC scheduling.
Because I'm trying to understand this based on what I'm seeing and based on what this first year of Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC would be. I would just have assumed, not having any real knowledge of how these things work, how they put together these schedules beyond reading what Adam Sparks is reporting.
We are flying by the seat of our pants right now.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page here because I'm looking at Oklahoma and Texas, assuming that the opponents that were on their schedule this year, they're just going to get the opposite in 2025, and obviously that's not the case.
Because the big question right now is for the future of SEC scheduling, 8 or 9 conference games. And that's what Greg Byrne, Alabama athletic director, should have said the other day when he was campaigning for Alabama, saying, we're not going to schedule any more non-conference games, any more good non-conference opponents. After Alabama won all their non-conference games and missed the playoffs for losing to 6-6 Oklahoma and 6-6 Vanderbilt, what he should have said is, why should we schedule 9 conference games? Right? But that, I guess, would sound pettier. I don't know. But that is a legit question for the SEC. If you're Greg Sankey, why do we want a 9-game conference schedule if I'm going to have teams left out for losing due to the cannibalism of the SEC schedule? That's the big question moving forward, but there is no long-term future in terms of scheduling. That week 1 game against Syracuse is intriguing. Syracuse, obviously, Fran Brown done a great job there, upsetting Miami. In Atlanta, neutral site. So, that is an interesting non-conference matchup. But the natural question that comes out when these schedules are revealed, who's got the toughest path? Texas has not had a good strength of schedule this year. They got to play Georgia, and they fell apart at home and then lost in overtime in the SEC championship. Apart from that, their best win was at Texas A&M in 8-14. Texas in 2025 is making up for that and then some. They go to Ohio State to open the season. They go to Florida, and they have to go to Georgia. And, of course, they're going to play Texas A&M and Oklahoma. And their other conference opponents are Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Mississippi State. But that is no joke. Going to Ohio State, going to Florida, and going to Georgia, probably be hard-pressed to find an SEC team with a tougher road slate than that, what Texas will deal with in 2025.
Are you going to try and go to that game?
What game?
Syracuse?
Yeah, that'd be a good time.
It's in Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta's an easy trip.
It is. I am awaiting the MLS schedule reveal, which is coming up. So that will be in the midst of Nashville season. Maybe it's during Leagues Cup, though. So, that will be a fun game. Fran Brown done a great job at Syracuse. But
Jackson, do you want to go? We'll just leave him at home.
Let's go.
Okay.
No, Jackson's handcuffed to soccer, too. Sorry, buddy.
Nope, Joseph will cover for me.
What an ungrateful way to talk about your just shining opportunity to be the play-by-play voice of Nashville SC. Handcuffed to soccer, too.
Nope, you're stuck with me, buddy.
Shameful.
You're
Don't
stuck
try to
with me.
defer. Don't defer
I will
to
take
him.
a game off, Lucas. Do not.
Who's being ungrateful? Georgia in the SEC opener. That is going to be a fun early season test.
At Neyland, at least.
You do get him at home.
Yeah. 615-737-1045, the number if you want to jump in. Gator Mike is next.
Buck, how y'all doing?
Good, buddy.
Hey, just like Lucas said, yeah, the SEC schedule makers still haven't figured out because once again, Florida is playing at Texas A&M. I think this is our third or fourth trip to Kyle Field since they joined the conference, whereas Georgia has only played them once and they got them at home. So about when you were talking about Oklahoma and Tennessee, Lucas feels my pain. But, Lucas, we're talking about Texas's murderer's row schedule. Florida fans have no sympathy for them after our schedule the last 2 years. Am I right?
Yeah, fair enough, Mike. Fair enough.
Hey, and finally, Buck, I think we need to do a road trip and broadcast the show from Gainesville for that November 22nd till next year. That's what I think we need to do.
I will, like Lucas, I have to await the thing that I'm handcuffed to, which is the Titans schedule, so that it may not be seamless.
Maybe the Titans could be in Jacksonville that Sunday, and we can just swing over there after the game on Saturday.
There you go.
Yep. It's entirely possible.
Hey, I don't mind going to Gainesville.
Maybe there's a bye. I'd be down. Listen, I would love to do an SEC road game.
Yeah.
I got to go to my first SEC. Well, I used to work Vandy games, but respectfully to Vandy, at the end of the Derek Mason tenure, it was not, the most raucous of SEC environments. So a real SEC environment, a real road SEC environment would be delightful because I've never gotten to do that before.
I like going to Florida in late November and not have to play in the September heat in Gainesville. I do appreciate that element of it.
All right. Belichick at North Carolina. Speaking of the world of college football, obviously that's the biggest headline in the world of sports today. But what is his actual ceiling as the head coach of the Tar Heels? We'll talk about that and also give you the details on Gentry Estes' open letter excoriating Titans ownership and specifically Amy Adams Strunk for her lack of availability. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Guys, don't trust your health to an online pharmacy and don't feel like you're out of options if you're somebody who's been taking pills, for example, for ED. There are so many misconceptions out there about treating it, and I'm here to debunk those for you. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you because lots of men assume that if the pills don't work, they have no other options. And the options that are available to you, for example, if you just go see a doctor about it, may involve things like irreversible surgery, which obviously you would like to avoid if you can. Please do not do things like irreversible surgery before you've talked to the experts at the Tennessee Men's Clinic because they specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. It makes them the experts in the field, and they have access to multiple protocols and options to treat ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size and stamina, and everything else in between. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans were on the practice field Wednesday, getting ready to host the Bengals at Nissan Stadium Sunday. Will Levis was a full participant at practice. Tyler Boyd, Nick Folk, T'Vondre Sweat, and Tony Pollard were among the players that did not practice. It is official. Bill Belichick will be the next head coach at North Carolina. The school announced it on Wednesday. Press conference coming up this afternoon in Chapel Hill. Former NFL GM and Patriots assistant Mike Lombardi reportedly will join Belichick in a general manager role. Thursday Night Football is in the NFC West tonight. The 49ers host the Rams. Kickoff is at 7:15. Westwood One coverage begins on The Zone at 7 p.m. And the Nashville Predators look to end an 8-game slide. Tonight they are at the Dallas Stars. 7 p.m. is the puck drop. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Thursday. Thanks for hanging out, Jackson, Lucas, and me until 1 o'clock. Then we'll turn things over to Blaine and Zach after that. 615-737-1045. Jump in there if you want. We'd be happy to have you. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is where you can live stream the program if you are so inclined. Speaking of programs, Bill Belichick is now running a college football program, or soon will be. Do we have any announcement on a press conference for Bill Belichick?
I believe 1 p.m. Central today. Double check that.
That's going to be
But
fascinating.
he's there. I mean, the pictures of him on campus and with his blue tie, it is real.
Which is just so bizarre.
1 p.m. Central is the introductory presser.
So Bill Belichick takes over a UNC program that is in an interesting spot. Obviously, things did not go to plan with Mac Brown at the helm, and then Mac Brown was... it's not quite unceremoniously relieved of duty.
No, it was unceremonious, but I wouldn't say things didn't go according to plan. Mac Brown had a good tenure at North Carolina.
This year.
Sure. This year, 6-6, the embarrassing loss to James Madison, where they gave up 70 points, 50 by halftime. Yeah, things fell off a bit. But all in all, Mac Brown should be recognized in a very positive light for what he did at North Carolina, both in the 90s and in this most recent stint. They didn't have any double-digit win seasons, no, and they did lose 4 consecutive bowl games, but they had winning seasons in almost every year he was there, and 2 quarterbacks drafted in the top 10 in Mitch Trubisky and Drake May. So, to me, with the standards of North Carolina football, it's hard to scoff at what Mac Brown did. The question is, how does the standard change now?
Well, no, it's different between scoffing and saying that they had a disappointing season, and
They did have a disappointing season.
Mac Brown's tenure there ended unceremoniously, even though on aggregate, you're right, they did a lot of good things there. But now it's Belichick, who is one of the greatest coaches in the history of football, no matter what level of football you're talking about, even though he's never been a college football coach, just football. He's one of the greatest coaches ever. Even though this will be his first foray into the collegiate ranks, he is going to be so fascinating, especially in the ACC, as the ACC is currently comprised. And we'll see how much longer the ACC looks the way that it currently looks, right? There's the whole lawsuit situation, the grant of rights that's continued to be bemoaned by ACC member institutions because they see how much more money the Big Ten, the SEC, and everybody else are getting now that they have conference realigned and able to redo their television deals and just expanded their footprint. But this was a confusing year for the ACC. Who's going to be the favorite in the ACC next year? Miami loses Cam Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson is still Clemson, but still being Clemson also connotes Dabo's stubbornness that makes you want to ding Clemson a little bit as far as their talent profile and their portal profile will look like. You've got different teams now in the mix with SMU and different teams that have joined the ACC this year as well.
I think Kevin Jennings, I wonder if it'll be SMU. If Kevin Jennings is back. He'll be back next year. A lot of it depends on how the portal plays out But remember who was picked to win the ACC this year?
No.
Florida State. So, because they had a phenomenal portal class.
Oh, no.
They brought in DJU, who kind of, was better at Oregon State, still had that 5-star profile back in the ACC.
Laughed that hard. I know so many Florida State fans are miserable.
It's a great question. There could be a lot of parity in the ACC next year.
So, where parity exists, fair to expect that Bill Belichick has some level of experience winning within the margins in a sport filled with parity. So, how he's going to devise a plan to go about this. Here's this question today is impossible to answer before he gives his press conference, and I'll tell you why. The most important thing is not Bill Belichick. That's going to be the thing that gathers the most headlines here. The most important thing is who he hires to be his coordinators. That's infinitely more important. Like, Belichick is something. Yes, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, he'll have a hand in the defense. But I know we joked yesterday about the idea of Matt Patricia, former defensive mastermind, now the offensive coordinator of North Carolina or something ridiculous. But say he does something similar to that, which we consider unthinkable, but I would have said North Carolina hiring Bill Belichick is unthinkable. So I have no idea what's coming here. I can't answer Bill Belichick's ceiling as a question at North Carolina until I know who's going to be calling the plays on both sides of the ball. Is he going to call the defense?
Yeah, no, a lot of questions, and I look forward to seeing how he answers those at his press conference coming up in about an hour, because that's going to be a big question. Who's your offensive coordinator? What kind of offense? How are you going to go acquire a quarterback?
Yeah, who is your quarterback?
Right. So the question is, what's his ceiling here? And it's hard not to say college football playoff. Like, Rhett Lashley just took SMU to the college football playoff. So
Indiana's in the college football playoff.
Right.
You can get to the college football playoff depending on how the stars align. And reportedly, according to Jonathan Jones at CBS, he's getting a $20 million NIL budget, which puts him in the same rank as Texas and Georgia.
Yes. So he can do a good job with that financial backing at North Carolina. I have no doubts about that whatsoever. And it's been interesting to see. Have you seen the reporting by Jeff Howe of The Athletic on this, on why Belichick is making this move? The title on The Athletic, Why Bill Belichick Abandoned Hope of Landing an NFL Job in the Pursuit of the Wins Record.
Whoa.
There are several interesting quotes here. One high-ranking executive said to Jeff Howe of The Athletic, Belichick burned a lot of bridges over his career. Another team executive said to Howe, if he wanted to coach again, he almost had to take this job. So there's this feeling that, here's another one. There might be some owners who want Belichick's structure and stability, but he is 72. I think a lot of teams want to build something long-term, and he clearly has a capped timeline. So it's been interesting to see a lot of the reporting around this that, it was a long shot for him to land an NFL job. This was his best path to coaching again.
They could have just cited Woody Johnson, Jets owner. I'm recklessly speculating here, but the person who was quoted as saying Belichick burned a lot of bridges.
Well, that's one of them.
Yeah, you could have just said that. Jets owner Woody Johnson said.
That's one of them.
Reckless speculation.
Yeah. How involved will he be in recruiting? Asks Jael on the FNM Bank chat. Huge question. Huge question.
Yeah, because it's like Deion. I mean, Deion, to your point, like we talked about in the first hour, he doesn't do it the conventional way, but he doesn't have to do it the conventional way. Because
because he also had Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter with him, and that's a credit to Deion.
Yeah, he has equity because Deion Sanders is one of the most respected figures in all of football. Honestly, in all of sports right now. Modern day sports, there are a ton of people who have incredible admiration as professional athletes, college athletes, prospective college athletes that look up to Deion for a variety of different reasons. But he's also on television every time you look up. It's not just the commercials. His recruiting pitch is done on the Dan Patrick Show instead of in your living room, because he's in your living room still. He's just talking to you through the TV. Now, Belichick is obviously doing weekly appearances with McAfee, the Manning cast. He's got all these different, he's doing that weekly show. It's in Greg Cosell's building at NFL Films. The idea of Bill Belichick, he's been doing that weekly show with Chris Long and who else is on there? Ryan Clark inside the NFL for the CW. So he's got a media component here that he can also traffic in the same way that Dion did, if that's the way that he chooses to do it. Or he could be more conventional than we otherwise think he might be.
Jackson, can we hear what some legendary former Belichick Patriots players think of this on
Belichick
Fox?
is actually interviewing for college jobs? Can you imagine him coaching college?
No.
Absolutely not. Recruiting an 18-year-old?
Listen, you really want to come here? I mean, we don't really want you anyway, but I mean, I guess you could come. We'll figure out if you play. If you bring your parents and use us as a third party, you're gone. You're off the team. We're direct.
Some scar tissue built up here among these guys. Thanks for...
Okay, so that's Gronk, Brady, and Edelman.
And Edelman on
also,
Fox.
Why? I mean, respectfully to Julian Edelman, why is he on television?
You don't like him on TV?
I mean, is Julian Edelman the kind of player that connotes one of these Fox Sports jobs? Is he Michael Strahan?
Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, I think you just got to be entertaining. I don't think it's that deep.
Is he entertaining? I
don't think you have to be. I don't think being a Hall of Famer is a qualifier for.
I mean, there used to be a bar, but I guess whatever.
Some of the best analysts in football did not play at very high levels. Some of the absolute best of the best.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
I agree. But he's not a game analyst. He's a studio analyst. But
yeah, true.
That's neither here nor there. So it is funny. Now, we're going to play for you some Mike Lombardi audio here because Mike Lombardi is reportedly going to be his general manager at the University of North Carolina. So, Jackson, how long is this clip? Because I don't really want more than a minute of it.
2 minutes and 50 seconds.
All right, let's see how far we can get in a minute of Mike Lombardi, former NFL general manager, appearing with VSiN in Vegas, the gambling outlet, talking about he and Belichick's plan together.
Speak to me about how it will be different from what you did as a player personnel person and a GM in the NFL to what you will do as this new GM position in Division I college football.
Not much, Mike. I think we're going to build a pro personnel department, and that pro personnel department really will be the transfer portal. So that will be what we build there to monitor all the college teams, whether it's in the ACC, the Big Ten, the Southeast Conference, or in any conference, right? The new Pac-12. So you have to monitor all the players just like you would in pro football. And then obviously you'll have a director of college scouting, but that guy will be the director of high school scouting and monitor all the high schools. North Carolina has a great fan base. They have a tremendous recruiting area in the Tidewater area in Virginia. They haven't been into Florida as much in recent years, but there has been a time where they were very good in that state. So we're going to try to expand it to a national program, which it should be. I mean, when you mention North Carolina, that brand is significant. It may be associated with basketball, but we're going to bring that brand out on a national level. We've had two quarterbacks drafted in the first pick in the first round, Mitchell Trubisky and Drake May, and so it has an appeal to quarterbacks, and we're going to continue that along with having a pro-style offense. So, I think the job's going to stay pretty much like it was. We're just going to reframe the name of the job, but it's going to be pretty much the same, and it's going to be 24/7. The difference will be there's no structure, right? We won't have a draft, and there'll be deadlines in terms of the portal, but we can work around that.
Michael, it's fascinating. You can hear the excitement.
That's Mike Lombardi, the now North Carolina general manager, on an appearance with VSiN. So, fascinating science experiment in Chapel Hill this year.
It is, but other programs have that built up too. People to monitor players in the portal.
There he is, SEC,
I'm just
SEC
saying,
gatekeeper.
We're acting like this has never been
to
done.
Vanderbilt, it would have been the biggest deal in the entire world.
Oh, they're going to have somebody in charge of evaluating players from the portal. Oh, this
Lucas,
is groundbreaking.
You went to one combine with me. Do you remember how much credence NFL people that exist in this world, give college football, even understanding that thing is built entirely off college football players? Absolutely none. They don't exist in any world but the NFL. Once you understand that, then you understand these people.
It's groundbreaking stuff.
And the way that they think.
Somebody will evaluate the portal?
Coming up next,
Wish we had thought of that.
Estes of the Tennessean absolutely nuked Amy Adams Strunk, the Titans' controlling owner, in an open letter to her in the paper and on their website. We're going to read this article for you coming up next.
Keep it local this holiday with gift giving from Hattie B's. Hey, it's Lucas Panzica giving you a perfect idea for that hard-to-buy family member. Go to HattieB.com. They have a full line of some damn hot Hattie B's hot chicken gear, hats, hoodies, koozies, and more. You can create a customized Nashville hot gift. Pair it with a Hattie B's gift card. Who doesn't like free hot chicken? Nashville's best. Visit any one of their 6 locations, the factory at Franklin, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, and the Nashville Airport, and now on game days at Nissan Stadium, located in section 121 and 339, serving up the Hattie B's favorites at every Titans home game. Swing by and get a chicken sandwich as you watch Titans and Bengals this weekend. Be sure to download the Hattie B's app today. You get a free dessert just by doing so. Order for pickup or delivery at any one of their 6 locations and go to Hattie B's today.
This song is too happy for them. I don't think they should get this song anymore. This song connotes joy and light, and that is not where the Tennessee Titans season is at 3-10. But that's neither here nor there, because regardless of how bad this season has gone or how much worse it could get, there are enough people who are clamoring for accountability beyond the person who's been left out there on an island to be accountable for all this, which is Brian Callahan. And there's enough of what I'm about to read from the Tennessean today reflected in how you guys are reacting to this that I think it's now viable. Whether or not Amy Adams Strunk gets in front of you or gets in front of a microphone and fields press conference questions the way that some of you are wanting her to now, I still think it's less likely than more to happen. We talked about all this to start the show. It doesn't benefit her at all to do that. But does the local newspaper, and I'm not just doing this to Gentry because newspapers are in a weird spot, but like a local newspaper columnist excoriating a team used to have considerable weight. And the Tennessean is the paper of record, even if newspapers have kind of, and media in general is more fractured than it's ever been. But when somebody comes after you as the owner, as strongly as Gentry Estes did here, I don't know. I do think it warrants a response in some form or fashion, whatever that response looks like and whether that response is satisfactory. So I'm going to read from this article in the Tennessee. And Gentry Estes, by the way, is going to be on the 615 Sessions podcast tomorrow. There's the offseason, preseason, regular season, and for many NFL franchises, the postseason. Not Amy Adams Strunk's Tennessee Titans anymore. This is your team's blaming season. It feels so excruciatingly familiar, doesn't it? Right back in the same place, another year of sitting and awaiting your verdict as controlling owner without any idea who you'll hold accountable this time. Is it the players? Is it the general manager, Rand Carthon, and front office colleague, in quotations or in parentheses, boss, ? Chad Brinker? Is it their turn after it was John Robinson's in 2022, or will it be the coaching? Brian Callahan, as was the case last year with Mike Vrabel. Will it be no one? Everyone, then and now, those who've endured this team's prolonged misfortune all carry opinions on who should be hurled overboard. It's just that none of those opinions matter, only yours. That means by now, the blame is yours. Talking about Amy Adams Strunk here. And so he goes into this long list of different places where she's missed the mark in this column. You've promised Titans fans more than this, he says, Miss Amy. Your fan base isn't just disappointed, it's dwindling. It's tuning out. It isn't showing up at games. It's tired of the losing and the lack of accountability for anyone other than Titans coaches and players. 4 games left, and Callahan has already been asked by reporters about his job security. Not his call, it's your call. Unfortunately, as always, there's only public silence from the Titans owner about everything. No thoughts, no support, no criticism, no plan, no explanation, no visible leadership from this franchise other than Callahan. No real reason for Titans fans to feel anything other than disillusioned by an offseason's worth of effusive positivity that has proved fiction, not fact, calling into question the competency of the leadership involved. Though I've often suspected positivity from your charges to be as much for the owner's ears as for the fans anyway. Why? Because that's been the mandate, right? For everyone to play nice. Look, I truly believe you to be a nice person, and that's why I believe that you've had admirable intentions trying to emulate the collaborative success of the Detroit Lions leadership under team owner Sheila Ford Hamp, even as the idealistic vision has provided a complete failure here in Tennessee. The Lions aren't winning because of collaboration. They're mostly winning because they've drafted better than anyone else, and especially your organization, and it takes players. Your Titans don't have enough good ones. That's it. That's the problem that needs to be fixed. As for the corporate culture, I mean, who cares? You run a football team. Collaboration is a buzzword that sounds like a good idea, but I don't think anyone had the gumption to tell you how no one likes a group project. You end up wasting time being polite, but if you don't, you'll come off like a malcontent, kind of like, say, Vrabel. That guy Vrabel you fired last year. Robinson was an alpha dog too, who evidently didn't fit the new Titans order. But here's the thing. It hasn't been all that pleasant. You can't pick off the GM one year and the coach the next, turning the place into an island on Survivor and expect teamwork and collaboration to hold up when times get tough again. It's human nature to plot and wonder who's voted off next. You asked Carthon, Robinson's replacement, to collaborate with Vrabel, who advised against hiring him as GM in the first place. Then when that didn't work out, shocker, Vrabel was gone. Carthon was back with more responsibility, but you couldn't resist another curveball. You moved Brinker to a title above Carthon. Didn't exactly scream confidence in your choice of GM, though it did, in true Titan style, perpetuate ambiguity about who's really in charge. This is not how serious NFL organizations do business. Enough. Enough of the Titans blaming seasons. Enough of the lack of public transparency. Enough of treating the fan base as if its continued loyalty isn't worth your time. It's not too much for your fans to expect to hear from the team's owner more than once a year, and only when you fired someone important. You are the Titans owner. You can do whatever you want. You can clean house this offseason and then send quarterback Will Levis out to a podium to face the media's questions about the purge. Good luck, Will. After Vrabel was fired, Carthon was in that spot. He gave an awkward, embarrassing news conference in which he basically acted as if he didn't feel emboldened to speak for the team's owner, even though that's why he was sent out there. Wasn't his fault. Meanwhile, you gave a 5-minute interview to Mike Keith, the voice of the Titans, in which you told fans of your high expectations, and I'll never apologize for that. You told Titans fans that they deserve a great team and a championship, and how you were prepared to make hard decisions to hopefully get us there sooner. And of last season's 6-11 finish, you deemed that unacceptable. Okay, obvious question. If that was unacceptable, what's this season been? I hope Mike Keith gets to ask you soon. Damn. Gentry Estes of the Tennessean. No stone unturned. Are they going to respond? I have no earthly idea. I don't know, again, I don't know if it benefits her to at all. But this dude just took a hammer to your entire organizational structure, to all the things that you preached, and made a statement about how, basically saying that she does not consider her fans' emotions in what has been an awful, awful 3 years of football to be important enough for her to get out there and field questions. Now, she's not fielding questions from the fans. She's fielding questions from the media on behalf of fans. And we are not you guys, right? You guys have far more passion, love, financial commitment, all these different things than we do. We're there as a neutral party to try and flesh some of this stuff out. But I don't know if you can, poor Mike Keith. I mean, it's not Mike Keith's fault. He's a team employee, and that's who she picked to be in there. But Mike Keith catching a stray in the closer. I don't know how you don't respond to this as an organization. Because isn't that the way that most of us feel? I mean, I'm not going to speak for you, but I think he's spot on. I think it's been an absolute clown show, the way that this is going.
Everything Gentry had in there was fair. There were no unfair pot shots there, right? Where you look at something and you say, okay, I mean, come on. Like, no, everything was fair. That's how it's gone. And fans have questions and want answers and are spending money and are not getting a return and are expected to be spending more money. So as much as there are some fans that are, like we've seen in the FNM Bank chat today, oh, what's she going to say? It's going to make no difference. It's not going to make the football any better.
It's been far fewer of those, though, than it has people saying, thank you, Gentry Estes, Brandon, bravo. Finally, somebody is saying it. She has been put on some untouchable pedestal too long because she's a sweet old lady.
So we put it to that poll, and the results went final, where 39% of the fans that voted said it makes no difference to them if she speaks or not, but about 33% say it's very important to them. And 28% say it's not that important, but 33% said it's very important. That's not an end-all, be-all. That's a few hundred Titans fans voting on a poll.
Yeah, it's a Twitter poll. I mean, and famously, if you paid attention to election cycles in the last couple of years, polling doesn't mean jack. So I don't want to dismiss the people voting on Twitter because I do believe that they vote, there, and I don't want to extrapolate it out further to say that's how all Titans fans feel. How many people voted on the poll?
Like 300.
Okay. We understand that that's not indicative of all of you. That's the sample size that we have available to us, which is why we have open phone lines. And I ask you again, what do you want here as a fan base? I don't want to speak on your behalf. When I came in here on Monday and ripped them up and down for being horrendous, That's because that's how I felt watching that game. I don't know how you felt. I assume that's how you felt because you paid money to be there, and I didn't. And I can't imagine how I'd feel if I actually invested finances and what the hell that is this season. Or, like many of you are right now, been asked to invest further in what that thing might be. Because that's the perfect storm here, right? It's that they cleared house with a lot of popular figures, even if they were as unpopular at the end of their tenure here as they were at any point, whether it be Vrabel, Robinson, Tannehill, Henry walking is a big part of this too, compounded with new stadium, home of the Tennessee Titans, and home of the Tennessee Titans has never meant less than it does right now when there's 35,000 people in the stands watching you poop the bed against the Jags.
It couldn't be happening at a worse time.
That's what I'm saying.
Right now. The state of the football team right now.
But there was a lot of happy stuff, a lot of happy messaging, a lot of, public appearances when, they're out there breaking ground on the stadium, like all these things. And so now Gentry, on behalf of fans, is demanding another appearance, but in a different kind of setting. And they can't put her in a press conference setting with Titans fans like a town hall. That would be, that would be fun, but it would never happen. And I'm sure that if you pay enough money for a suite or God knows how much, some of these things like the higher profile premium experiences, you probably get an audience with somebody in the Titans organization on a semi-regular basis, whether it's you get to have lunch with the coach or you get to, hang out with Rand or something like that. Like, I'm certain that people are spending enough money for some of those things to happen. But again, it's not about them. It's about her. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. Here's the biggest issue for me with all of this, right? Because it's easy to say, yeah, he got her, But that's not really what this is. What does it fix?
If she speaks.
If she speaks. What does it inherently fix?
It doesn't fix anything.
Because it's really hard for me to come up with that answer. And that, I think, is if you wanted to make an argument against, well, for what?
Yeah, what's the upside for her? Right. But I think therein lies the issue with fans. Like, no, it's not about what's good for you. It's about what's good for us. Right. What's good for the consumer, the ones that are buying your product. That's what it's about for fans. And that for the fans that want to hear from her, even if it's an acknowledgement of this season has gone nowhere near the path that we thought we were capable of. But I don't know. Maybe fans want an acknowledgement of that and addressing where they are in terms of we believe that the people in place are the people to get this turned around.
Give us a reason other than sad Callahan trotting up there. And sad because he's experienced so much losing, not sad because he's a sad person or, like that would indicate some level of less than. I don't know what Brian Callahan's going to be as a head coach. I have no idea what Rand's going to be as a general manager. All of this stuff is still pretty new, even as Rand's been on the job for 2 years. But it is indisputably a worse product. And we talked about this maybe offline yesterday. Kevin Clark, he does the podcast now for ESPN where he'll pose one question to not Titans fans, but to NFL fans on any given Sunday towards the end of the slate. And his question this week was, pitch me on one reason why your bad football team is going to be so much better in 2025. And I sat there and looked at that question for a long time. And again, it's not on me to pitch on behalf of the Titans fans because that's not my role. But I couldn't come up with it. And it's not just because I'm a naturally pessimistic person. Like, I understand that I have some blinders there that may, block out some other things that Titans fans may consider.
What is the most exciting thing about the future of the Tennessee Titans right now?
I got nothing.
Yeah, it's not the quarterback
Latham
position.
And even Greg is on the podcast this week being like, I don't know if they don't move into right tackle, which, by the way, is a reason to listen to the install today. But, the left tackle that's having a really, really tough time here in the last couple of weeks because it's not the quarterback, and that quarterback was a part of her opening statement.
Yeah.
I sat there and looked at that question, like, genuinely, Lucas, trying, because we've talked about this. I can't talk about them now without having some kind of venom in my voice because of how bad this has gotten. And people don't want that. And I'm trying to find a different way to talk about this stuff. But even in trying to find positives in a season where there is none other than Tony Pollard and Nick Folk.
So James Newsom on the F&M Bank chat says, well, at least us competent adults knew this was going to be a building process, not an overnight process. Get over yourselves. And then he adds, Detroit is an absolute case study for what's happening here. Come on, people. So Detroit was awful in year one of the Dan Campbell era. They were awful midway through year two of the Dan Campbell era. They were 1-6. Then they turned it around. But what was the difference there, right? Dan Campbell's first year was 2021. Cornerstone pieces that were rookies in that bad 2021 season. Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, right, who was great in his rookie, had a 900-yard season. I could look up the exact numbers in his rookie year. In 2022, Aiden Hutchinson, Jamison Williams, who I know was dealing with the ACL injury, Kirby Joseph. I mean, cornerstone players. And it probably was hard to see at 1-6 in year two that, well, hey, but Penei Sewell's looking pretty good. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Aiden Hutchinson looked pretty good. It was probably hard to see, but that was the process that they were building out. The Titans, J.C. Latham is one, and Jarvis Brownlee's been good as a rookie. But in terms of those cornerstone pieces, like we just named some of the highest paid players at their respective position right there in Detroit. Aiden Hutchinson is going to be one of those players when he comes back and gets healthy.
And Amon-Ra, they just spent all kinds of money on Goff, Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown this offseason. And they spent a ton.
And Dixie points out that Detroit had a haul from Matthew Stafford. They had capital, things to be excited about. They didn't know if they could trust the people in charge of that capital. Now they do know that those people that
Brad
were in
Holmes,
charge.
Well, and I don't know, Dan Campbell sometimes is just, he's got a really good football team, and I think that covers up some of the Dan Campbell stuff, but whatever.
But he's unquestionably a huge reason why they are what they are.
Yes.
So
he is their ethos.
That's the thing. They don't have that either. Like, Detroit is the model. Look how long it took in Detroit. Detroit had so many resources to use. The people that were in charge had to spend those wisely, and they did. Titans don't have as much capital, as many resources as the Lions had at that time. They had money to spend this past offseason. They're going to have money to spend in this upcoming offseason.
Here's why Detroit's not an acceptable analogy, though, and then we'll move on because there's phone calls to take. This is the exception. The Lions being good is the exception. They finally got it right. They've been around for 100 years as a franchise, and I know they had some moments with Barry Sanders, but even Barry Sanders was the team. They had some moments with Matt Stafford and Ndamukong Suh and Calvin Johnson, but this is the first time they've actually gotten it right. How long have Lions fans waited? An eternity. A lifetime. Longer than the Tennessee Titans have even been in existence have they waited. So I don't accept Detroit as a model for that. Because, only Lucas, because she did the thing that every owner does, which is when you make changes, you get up there and cite that it's unacceptable what happened here. So if, again, to Gentry's point, if the last couple of seasons were unacceptable here, then what on earth do you call this? 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in, we'll update some polls. We'll take your phone calls. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. What better gift for you and your family this holiday season than the peace of mind a tailored investment portfolio provides? Call my friends at Trajan Wealth today for your complimentary consultation, because we've all asked ourselves the questions at some point in life, whether you're going to have enough money when you retire or when you should start drawing from Social Security. If these questions are keeping you up at night like they do so many others, let me introduce you to Trajan Wealth, the team that's there to keep you on the right track and guide you through it. TRAJAN Wealth is the name. Trajan Wealth is not just any financial firm. They are your partners in securing your financial future. They are more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. And especially as we end the 2024 year, tax season right around the corner, they can help you with taxes as well. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Lucas, they got some cool stuff going on for the holidays with Hattie B's, yeah?
A lot of people are hard to get gifts for. I am one of those people. I feel like every year I get asked by loved ones, my fiance, parents, so what's your Christmas list? What do you? And I have no answers.
I'm the same.
I have no
idea. Isn't that
idea.
a male thing, though? Like, you just don't ever think about it?
I think so.
And then you impulse buy something you probably don't need or are going to use like 4 times and then not think about it ever again.
But I'd be thrilled to find a $100 Hattie B's gift card in my stocking. Are you kidding me?
That would be excellent.
Maybe some merch? HattieB.com.
Is that a hint?
Megan?
615-737-1045. The number if you want to jump in. Obviously, the thing that we just talked about was the open letter to Amy Adams Strunk, where Gentry Estes of the Tennessean just nuked her for a lack of accountability and visible leadership for not just media, but obviously for the fan base who is miserable with how badly this whole thing has turned out. Johnny is up next. Hey, Johnny.
There's no more excuses, no more questions to duck. Just like the Cowboys, the Titans suck.
Jackson, how dare you not tell me that was Johnny the Poet?
Johnny the Poet.
That's a 104.5 The Zone legend. That's not just some Johnny. Are you just going to stare at me with a dumb stare?
I got nothing. Sorry, Johnny the Poet.
Excellent work. Jeffrey is next. Thank you, Johnny. Always good to hear from you.
Oh, yeah. I'm a season ticket member, so been a fan for a little bit. I don't think it's really going to change anything, but having Miss Amy talk and answer that letter. But in my opinion, the difference between Vrabel and John's regime and kind of how it's more unacceptable to her than maybe Callahan and Carthon's is they had 6 seasons, and they had a good team in 2019, and it went downhill fast. Callahan and Carthon didn't start out with a good team. They have to draft that good team like y'all was talking about with the Lions. And if she just starts cleaning house again, a new GM's going to draft completely different, and you'll be starting all over again.
No, I get it, Jeffrey. I mean, that's the problem that you're in.
Yeah, for Callahan, it's more of a build than what it was for Vrabel when he took over.
Unquestionably.
Yeah.
That was a playoff team he took over.
Yeah, well, coming off a playoff win.
And the first playoff win that they had in like 14 or 15 years, if I remember correctly. So that's not a small difference. But still, 6 straight winning seasons is an accomplishment that wasn't good enough. And it got significantly worse. I'm not advocating John Robinson shouldn't have kept his job for the way that went.
Yeah, they didn't get fired because the 6 straight winning seasons weren't good enough. They got fired because they traded AJ Brown. It was 6-18 down the last 23 in the trade. Yeah, and everything fell apart.
Yeah, but why did they go 6-18? Because
that was
the general manager, and also AJ. I don't care about team sport versus individual player. AJ's good for at least a win or two. Like AJ is just good, so good. God, it makes me so angry. Joe's the last call of the day. Hey, Joe.
So a couple thoughts. I really think that Amy Adams Strunk's biggest problem is that she's not a Hunt, she's not a Rooney, she's not a Mara. Bud was Jerry Jones before Jerry Jones. And so I think people want her to be the face of the organization in ways that, the classic AFL owners aren't. And I think a separate point is, was Will Levis a Rand pick or a Vrabel pick?
It doesn't matter. The GM drafted him. The GM is still here.
Okay. But I do think that matters because if you really run a business appropriately, I really think you should have given Vrabel another year of run with Levis and then sink the ship with him. So I think she jumped the gun, and now we're in this situation where it's so awkward because you hired Vrabel 6 years ago, you fired him, you hired Rand for 1, you drafted Will Levis. There's no.
I appreciate it, Joe. 60 seconds on the clock before the music. By the way, I have Titans tickets to give away, 615-737-1045. If you want to go to the Bengals game and go to the Ron Slay tailgate, 615-737-1045. You call the number 5, and you can get those tickets. It does. I don't want to be as dismissive as my tone probably indicated. Yeah, it does matter who was a part of the dialogue around drafting Will Levis. But the general manager, who was the general manager, is still here. He was a part of drafting Will Levis. Now,
but if we don't know what the answer is on truly who that pick was, Vrabel, Ryan Cowden, and Rand Carthon, but they know in the building, and that could matter to them.
Sure.
If the answer is not Rand, we have no idea. No idea.
Whose fault is that we don't know?
Oh, yeah. No, it's the system that they put in place. Yeah, for sure. But they know. So I don't know how that could impact things.
All right. Jackson will, Jackson, why don't we just go ahead and do the polls and then you can field the calls.
All right, rapid fire here, presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. What is Bill Belichick's ceiling at UNC? 44% majority vote going 8 to 9 wins. And then you have 26.7% saying playoff berth, 16.7% say championships, only 12% believe less than 8 wins.
Bunch of SEC snobs like you.
I have questions about talent acquisition.
Keep it going, rapid fire, you said.
But I am curious about Belichick in game. In game, X's and O's. That is where he would have an
You're
advantage.
the one who's going to make
sure.
Blaine and Zach late.
By the way, the coaching carousel this year has been fascinating, despite not a single SEC job being open. Dan Mullen hired by UNLV.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. That's actually, Rich Rod is huge.
Back at West Virginia.
Yeah.
Scott Frost back at UCF. A lot of teams going back to move forward. As Titans fans, how important is it for you to hear Amy Adams Strunk speak? 39% say it makes no difference. 32.8% say it's very important. 28% say it's not that important.
Faster.
How many teams in the 12-team CFP can win the national title? 62% say 3 or 4. 27% say half. 5.5% say 7 to 9. 5.5% say all of them.
A little faster.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Appreciate you guys hanging out. One more prime time tonight. Little Thursday night football. Can you hear it on the zone?
Sure can.
You can. In
Rams,
fact.
Niners.
Westwood One coverage. So after 3HL concludes, you can get your football fix here. I'll see you later, where I'm certain we'll talk more about the Titans and this open letter to Amy Adams Strunk. Blaine and Zach are next.